Alright, Altium 20, starting a new project. Let's take a look at how we start a new project and what's involved. If we come up here to File and click on File, the first option we get says New. And inside New, I can select a project, a schematic, PCB for printed circuit board, right? There's a lot of options here. One thing to remember that Altium operates like a file system, right? It's a relational database. I can have a schematic and I can have a printed circuit board, but the only way that they can be related to each other is they have to be underneath the same project. So the first thing I want to do is say New Project. And here I have some options. Here's a default, right? I'm going to tell it, yeah, I'm going to create a default project. Here it shows up, PCB project. That's the default name. Now I can right click on my PCB project and say add new to project, a schematic. So I'll add a new schematic to that project. And then I'll right click again on my PCB project and I'll say add new to project, PCB. So now when you look at our project here, you'll see it's like I said, like a relational database, or it's like file folders, one folder under another. I have a project, and inside the project I have a schematic and a circuit board, and they're related to each other. That way whatever I put on the schematic can show up on the printed circuit board. If I just opened a schematic and just opened a circuit board and I didn't have them under a project, they would not be related to each other and I couldn't move the parts across. Now you see this little red box here. This is telling me that these items have not been saved. So I'm going to right click here and tell it Save As. And I'll pick a place here. Here's some projects in Altium. I don't want to save it there. I tend to save my stuff where it's backed up with Dropbox. So I'll come down here. Now, I've been using this software a long time, and a long time ago it wasn't called Altium, it was called Protel. So I still have a folder that says Protel Designs because that's how old it is for me. But I'll come here to Protel Designs and I'll come down to a folder I've used several times. Right here, Op Amp. I'm going to put everything inside this Op Amp folder. So I click on it and I'm going to come here and say, yeah, I want to call my PCB OPAMP, Op Amp. And I'll just copy that so it's easy to use later. Tell it save. And then it says, well, here's my sheet. That's my schematic sheet. I'm still saving in the same place. I'll come up here and say Op Amp schematic sheet. And I have my project here. Look where it wants to put it. Nope, I don't want it there. I always have to be vigilant and watch. I'll come back down here again to Protel Designs. I'll drag this down till I see the Op Amp again. I want to save it there. And save. There we go. You see the little red box went away. Now I have an Op Amp project with an Op Amp schematic and an Op Amp PCB. That's where we want to start. Now on my Op Amp PCB, or my schematic, you'll see I have a blank sheet. In order to place parts on the sheet, I need to use my libraries. Now Altium has changed the name of the tab. You'll see over here in the top right it says Components. It didn't used to be called Components. If it doesn't show up on yours, like I'll make it go away on mine, if you don't see Components, you can come down here on the bottom right, Panels, and then you can come up here and say Show Me Components. Now I have Components. It should start off with this miscellaneous devices and miscellaneous connectors inside your components. That's the normal thing that it starts off with. These are other libraries that I've added along the way. But if I click on miscellaneous devices, Sometimes you might want to drag this around because it's hard to read if there's only that much text showing, so I drag this over so I can see more. And here you'll see transistors, 3904, 3906, a battery. There's a lot of parts here. Capacitors, diodes, fuses, even vacuum tubes from the good old days. You can place a vacuum tube. But what we want to place on this very first project that I'm going to show you here is an op amp. So I'll come up here to op amp. Now I can right click on it and say place op amp, or I can just double click on it and the op amp attaches to my mouse. Now everywhere my mouse moves, the op amp sticks to it. If I hit my space bar, I can rotate the op amp. That's important because most of the sim software that you've used in the past, they do Control R to rotate. Altium decided to use a space bar. I can zoom in and out if I hold the control key down and I roll the wheel on my mouse. I can zoom in and out. That's a handy function. So let's just place our op amp here by left clicking. After I place the op amp, you'll see I still have one attached to my mouse. I can place another one. In our case, I don't want to place another one, so my options to get rid of that are either hit the escape key or right click. Either one of those will do that. Now I have a little op amp here. Let's continue with our circuit because we're going to draw some stuff up and then we're going to see what changes we need to make it function the way we want. I'll go back to components and I'll say I want a resistor. Let's see, resistor 1. That's a good one. So I'll double click resistor 1. Here it comes, 1K. Now I'll show you a good trick to use when you're using Altium, because I may want to place several resistors but they have maybe say all the same value, or maybe I want to replace resistors that don't have the same value. For me, on this first case, I'm going to place this resistor and it's 1K, so I just left click. If I come up here and get ready to place the second resistor and I hit tab, when I hit the tab, I open up all these properties. I can come in here now and change the values. Here it says 1K. I can make that 10K right here on the bottom right. So then I hit the pause button. Now my resistor's 10K. I can stick it right up here. I right clicked, I stopped placing. I'm going to place one more resistor, but I'm going to use a different schematic part. You'll see that the footprints show an axial 0.3, axial 0.4, and here it says J10603. That's a surface mount part, and we'll learn more about that as we move over to the PCB side. But in order to do that, I'm going to double click resistor 3. I'm going to hit the tab button. I'm going to come over here and say I want it to be 50 ohms. Now it's 50, and I'll stick it here. Alright, so I placed 3 resistors. If we look at this, it's like, alright, I have an op amp, I have 3 resistors, nothing's connected together. So how do we do that? I can do that with this wiring tool right here. Place wire. You can probably do that up here too. Place wire. And you can use Control W. All these things do the same thing. A lot of places to do the same thing. So if I do this place wire, now I have a little X attached to my mouse. Now watch what happens when I put the X on the part. You'll see that the X gets bigger. Smaller here, bigger here, changes color. If I put it in the middle of the resistor, it doesn't work. If I put it over here, my X doesn't change. It stays the same. I move it to the end, it gets bigger. What Altium is trying to tell us here, and let's zoom way in, is there is a net connection right here. You'll see at the end of the little line here, there's a dot with a little X in it. That's showing me where the net connection is. If I try to hook it in the wrong place over here, it might look good on the schematic, but it doesn't make an electrical connection, so you won't get a trace there. So what I want to do is come down here, make the big X, click, come over here, left click again. I've just made a connection. Now this now is a wire going between the two. So it's black here, it's blue here. This is a net connection or a wire. I can always hook another wire to that wire. So if I come here, big blue X on my resistor, and I come over, I'm going to left click, tell it I'm going to come down. You'll see I get the big blue X here. If I go over here, let's say I try to do this. Nope, no big blue X. I come over here, no, won't work there. But guess what? It works here. And there's my junction. So just keep that in mind. You always want to make connections where those little nodes are. If you don't hook up to the node, you're going to find out that your schematic might look good, but your PCB won't have the connection. So now I'm wiring up my op amp. There we go. I have an input resistor, a feedback resistor, an output resistor. But I notice I have red wavy lines. What's Altium trying to tell me with the red wavy lines? Well, Altium's warning me when I see those red wavy lines that I have duplicate parts. There's a problem. If I look, I have R question mark, R question mark, R question mark. They're not labeled. So as far as Altium is concerned, all three of these resistors are the same resistor. Now that could be a problem. It would actually take this right-hand node here, and that would be the same as the right-hand node here. Well, that's not good. That would basically short out this resistor. And then the right-hand node here to the right-hand node here. That's not good. I'm shorting everything out, right? So we don't want to do that. There's ways to fix it. I can highlight the part and click on Properties and see it. Now remember, if you don't see Properties, you can come down here to the panels and tell it, show me the properties. Here's Properties. Let's just demo that. So if I come to Properties and I turn it off, I don't have the properties available for this guy. I can't see it. I come to Panels, I say Properties. There we go. There's the properties. So I could come up here and change things. Here's my resistor. There's the properties right here. I see it's R question mark. I can make that R1 and hit enter. And there we go. Now it's R1. That could be a little tedious going through here all the time trying to do that. So let's look at some of the tools that Altium will give us to do this for us.